The LPGA tour had Caitlin Clark play, and the LPGA, like fans, well, the event was taken over by the ominous crowd that made sure to go get angry at everything Caitlin Clark did and everything Caitlin Clark does and was ever going to do, and made it that she was the problem and not the solution.
Okay, so the LPGA just stirred up some drama, and get this, it involves the WNBA. Basically, the LPGA invited Caitlyn Clark, one of the biggest young stars out there right now, to play in a Pro-Am event. This wasn't just any invitation, it was a strategic move that brought in a massive audience, a ton of excitement, and a whole new wave of fans who are now super into women's golf. Pretty smart, right?
The LPGA, you can see when it came to them that they were happy that Caitlin Clark was there. They knew exactly the value that Caitlin Clark brought.
The LPGA was all about shouting from the rooftops about Caitlin being there, because they know the kind of value she brings. But here's where it gets interesting. While the golf world was rolling out the welcome wagon, the WNBA's response has been, well, let's just say it's been cricket. So what's up with that? Is the WNBA maybe feeling a little threatened by Caitlyn's huge popularity? Could this be a sign of, dare I say it, jealousy?
Through the whole event, they saw how important it was that new fans were getting involved in golf, especially women's golf.
This situation has the potential to really shake things up in women's athletics. The LPGA's decision to include Caitlyn Clark was a total game changer. People from all walks of life, young and old, showed up not just to watch golf, but to catch a glimpse of Caitlyn's superstar power. And let's be real, her fame is undeniable. She's brought a tidal wave of new interest to the LPGA and to women's sports in general.
Because we know in the WNBA, when it came to Caitlin Clark, it was a lot of like, we don't need you, and we were good before, and we don't like your fans, and this, that, and everything.
The LPGA saw the opportunity right away. They welcomed her with open arms, understanding that she's not just a star athlete, but a beacon, drawing in tons of new viewers. The LPGA basically gave their sport a shot of adrenaline. They understood that Caitlyn's appeal goes way beyond basketball, that she's a draw for young viewers, many of whom might not have even considered watching women's golf before.
Like, they did everything they could to sabotage their own league. And yeah, it backfired. For me, anyway, I think it's hard to argue that it didn't completely backfire for them, because Caitlin Clark is more popular than ever.
But this warm welcome seems to have touched a nerve, sparking some serious grumbling from within the WNBA. Why is it that the WNBA doesn't seem to appreciate Caitlyn's universal appeal? Do some voices in the WNBA see her as competition, someone who's hogging the spotlight? Is there a fear that she's pulling attention away from the WNBA's established players? Some celebrities and even league supporters have voiced their doubts, arguing that all the hype around Caitlyn overshadows the hard-fought progress they've made. But let's think about this for a second. If the goal is to grow women's sports across the board, wouldn't it make sense to embrace a talent like Caitlyn, who brings in a whole new audience? The LPGA's response was so different, which begs the question, is this resistance from the WNBA a defensive move? Are they trying to protect their turf? What makes this whole situation even more fascinating is how the LPGA players and fans reacted. The vibe at the event was electric. People felt like they were witnessing something historic. This wasn't just another golf tournament. Fans showed up early, buzzing with excitement to see Caitlyn in action, and they stuck around long after the event was over, soaking it all in. Talking to players and just feeling the energy, it was clear that this wasn't just a one-off thing. It signaled a much bigger wave of interest. And that's something that could benefit women's athletics everywhere. LPGA stars like Nelly Korda have publicly praised Caitlyn. Korda even called her a breath of fresh air, saying it was amazing to see so many new faces in the crowd. They see Caitlyn as an ally, someone who can bring vitality and excitement to the LPGA. They recognize that growing their fan base ultimately helps everyone. They weren't afraid to seize the moment. In stark contrast, the WNBA has sadly been more defensive. Some people feel that Caitlyn's popularity represents a shift that threatens the established order of the league. Instead of seeing the potential for cross-promotion or recognizing that her popularity could boost the league's profile, some in the WNBA seem to view her fan base as a threat. This kind of mentality might actually be holding the league back. We're at a pivotal moment in sports, and leagues that don't adapt risk getting left behind. The LPGA seems to get that growth requires change. But the WNBA seems hesitant, maybe too cautious about protecting its identity. But by not fully embracing Caitlyn, is the WNBA missing out on a massive opportunity to boost its popularity? Something that could be a win-win not just for their league, but for women's athletics as a whole. The WNBA's reluctance to fully embrace Caitlyn demonstrates a totally different strategy. Instead of celebrating her ability to unite sports fans from all over, some people seem to see her fame as a distraction. It's as if they're guarding a private club instead of creating an inclusive space for women's sports, and honestly, this strategy is baffling to a lot of sports fans. This closed-off approach, so unlike the LPGA's open arms, could hinder the WNBA's long-term growth. Fans today are craving dynamic stories, compelling personalities, and connections between leagues. By keeping someone like Caitlyn at arm's length, the WNBA risks seeming out of touch with what today's sports audience wants. They're sticking to a narrow focus and potentially missing out on the chance to expand their reach and engage a wider audience. The main reason Caitlyn Clark is so popular is because of her genuine passion for all sports. She's openly expressed her support for women athletes in a variety of disciplines, emphasizing the importance of solidarity and shared success. Caitlyn has said multiple times that she has respect for leagues like the WNBA, and her passion is to advance women's sports in general. What if the WNBA had channeled that enthusiasm? Instead of dismissing Caitlyn's impact, they could have drawn in tons of new fans, sold more tickets, and given the league a huge visibility boost. But instead, the league has reacted with caution. It sounds harsh, but it's a significant missed opportunity for the WNBA, one they might later regret. Instead of welcoming Caitlyn as an ally, they've inadvertently created tension that's now playing out in the public eye, potentially alienating the very fans they're trying to attract. The difference in approach between the WNBA and the LPGA is a stark example of how different leagues view growth. The LPGA saw Caitlyn's appearance as a chance to grow, attract new viewers, and capitalize on a unique opportunity. They recognize that women's sports, which have historically struggled with viewership, have a lot to gain from cross-league promotion. The LPGA isn't just united and supportive, they're genuinely excited that their sport is attracting new interest. By collaborating with celebrities like Caitlyn, they're drawing attention to their sport and potentially keeping those fans engaged for the long haul. However, the WNBA's position seems to be advising them to view Caitlyn's acceptance as a threat instead of an asset. Their focus seems to be on preserving the status quo, which might not work for them in the rapidly changing sports industry. The LPGA's encounter with Caitlyn Clark should act as a model for how other leagues can adapt to the times, while the WNBA's defensive posture could put them at risk. If leagues like the WNBA don't support celebrities who can attract new viewers, they could struggle to compete in an increasingly interconnected sports world. Fans want to see unity, cooperation, and excitement, especially in women's sports, where all leagues face similar challenges. The LPGA's embrace of Caitlyn demonstrates that growth and openness go hand in hand, and this concept has the potential to benefit everyone. Imagine how much bigger women's sports could be if more leagues were willing to embrace this approach. As Caitlyn Clark's influence continues to grow, the divide between how the WNBA and the LPGA manage her will likely become even more pronounced. The LPGA's decision to embrace Caitlyn might lead to a wider trend of cooperation between women's sports leagues, a strategy that could elevate them all. Meanwhile, the WNBA's hesitancy could ultimately limit its own reach by failing to capitalize on the opportunity to collaborate with a celebrity like Caitlyn. They may be losing out on valuable fans and resources. This isn't just about one person or one league, it's about the future of women's sports as a collective force. And if the WNBA doesn't adapt, it might end up watching from the sidelines as Caitlyn helps other leagues rise to new heights, a power they decided to disregard. The response to Caitlyn Clark's popularity has exposed a fundamental difference in how women's sports leagues operate. While the LPGA's approach showcases flexibility and vision, the WNBA's response suggests a more defensive, almost protective stance. It's surprising to see this kind of conflict, especially when women's sports could benefit so much from solidarity and mutual support. Caitlyn Clark has proven that she's more than just a fan favorite. She's a genuine supporter of all women athletes. Her sincere affection for women's sports and her ability to draw large crowds make her an invaluable asset, not just in basketball, but in all sports she touches. Consider what if the WNBA had taken a page from the LPGA and celebrated Caitlyn's accomplishments? What if they had seen her as a bridge to new viewers of their games? The potential for cross-sport appeal, basketball enthusiasts, golfers, and beyond could be enormous. And it's not just about Caitlyn's fan base, it's about her ability to inspire others to create a greater influence, educating young girls about women in all sports. The WNBA could have positioned themselves alongside Caitlyn's narrative, leveraging her connections to increase their league's prominence. Instead, they've created a sense of exclusivity that could ultimately backfire, leaving fans and participants questioning why the league isn't more welcoming. In today's sports world, fans are hungry for celebrities and compelling stories. Caitlyn Clark is more than just an athlete. She's a personality, and that's what attracts people. The LPGA acknowledged this and used her appeal to create a sense of excitement and inclusivity. They knew the crowds that came to see her weren't just there for golf. They were there to be part of a story, to feel the thrill, and to have the chance to participate. This is where the LPGA demonstrated genuine insight. They didn't focus on maintaining some kind of outdated purity or exclusivity. They focused on expanding the sport, and they believed Caitlyn was the perfect person to help them do that. Why hasn't the WNBA used a similar way of thinking? Even more intriguing are the reactions of fans. Many of Caitlyn's admirers are vocal about their support for her, regardless of which sport she's playing. They want her to succeed, and they want to follow her journey, whether it's on a golf course or a basketball court. By not fully embracing her, the WNBA risks alienating not only Caitlyn's fans, but also conveying a message that could be detrimental to young aspiring athletes. Instead of fostering harmony and acknowledging each other's accomplishments, the WNBA's posture creates conflict, implying that there isn't room for cooperation or inter-sports support. Conversely, the LPGA appears to recognize the importance of community and reciprocal promotion. Their strategy demonstrates a deeper understanding of what today's sports fans are searching for. People prefer to watch athletes who show support for each other, cooperative leagues, and a spirit of solidarity. The LPGA's cooperation with Caitlyn Clark conveyed a signal that they're not only open to growth, but they're actively working towards it. They don't fear gaining new fans or the attention Caitlyn brings. They're happy with it. This shift in strategy demonstrates a degree of adaptability that could be vital to the future prosperity of the LPGA as they take advantage of this opportunity. Though the WNBA seems to be stuck in a certain attitude that might restrict its own development, regretfully, the WNBA's answer appears to be based on an antiquated paradigm, one that places a higher value on exclusivity than growth. By separating themselves from Caitlyn, they're losing out on the opportunity to reach a far wider number of admirers of women's athletics. Fans desire to witness athletes and leagues helping one another, removing obstacles, and working collectively to raise awareness of women's accomplishments. The WNBA's unwillingness to accept this spirit of cooperation could eventually put them at a drawback, particularly since other leagues like the LPGA demonstrate that they're ready to change to satisfy the needs of fans. Caitlyn Clark's embrace by the LPGA might provide a standard for how women's sports leagues communicate with one another. Imagine a planet in the future where leagues openly advertise crossover events, honor each other's accomplishments, and acknowledge the importance of shared fan bases. This strategy might reinterpret women's sports are making it more widely available, more well-liked, and esteemed. Among employees, leagues working together can build a larger, a more welcoming environment for women's sports. The choice made by the LPGA to accept Clark may just be the beginning of something groundbreaking, but if the WNBA doesn't change their perspective or risk being abandoned behind while other leagues take advantage of the chance to introduce new vitality in viewers. As this tale develops, evidently Caitlyn Clark's, the LPGA's influence is only increasing. Choice to include her in their group was audacious, and it paid off in several ways that will probably help them for years to come. Clark is a superstar in the future, and everywhere she goes, her admirers follow her. The readiness of LPG to accept her and honor her fame, which demonstrates a level with anticipation that additional leagues may like to make a point that they comprehend that expansion isn't about protecting the gate, but about letting new fans in and opening doors and demonstrating to the world how thrilling women's sports might be, somewhat different from the WNBA's unwillingness to embrace Clark in its entirety, shows a way of thinking that can restrict their own potential by concentrating on maintaining the status quo that they are currently lacking, missing the opportunity to grow their fan basis and connect with new people. It's a reminder that leagues for sports in particular need in the field of women's athletics to be adaptable and willing to switch. Fans are drawn to genuineness these days, relationship and transcendental tales. Caitlyn Clark's conventional borders symbolizes all of that and more. As well as any the league is prepared to accept, her influence is likely to receive amazing benefits. If we have learned anything from this circumstance, women's sports have anything to gain from this greatly, from openness and cooperation and a readiness to accept celebrities who can raise awareness of the game. That the embrace of Clark by the LPGA is a step into the correct direction, demonstrating that they're ready to innovate, take chances, and put above all the expansion of women's sports. Conversely, the WNBA poses hazards, slipping behind by holding on to an antiquated strategy that isn't in line considering the expectations of contemporary audiences. Women's athletics is about to undergo a significant change, and those leagues, those that adjust, will be the ones who prosper. Caitlyn Clark's embrace by the LPGA and the WNBA's opposition reveals two extremely distinct routes in women's athletics, while one league recognizes a chance, whereas the other appears to perceive Caitlyn Clark's effect increases the reluctance of the WNBA might be quite costly for them. So, what do you think? Is the WNBA making a mistake, or are they justified in their approach? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more content on sports strategy and culture. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the latest updates in women's athletics.